I'm Eden Mary Gator, and this episode is a continuation of my series on the economic possibilities in the Bahamas. And this podcast is brought to you by Sand Dollar Business Solutions. In this episode, I want to talk about the potential for an orange economy in the Bahamas. So, the orange economy is often referred to as the creative economy, but to actually define the orange economy exclusively as the creative economy, it's almost like being forced to use a single word in an attempt to describe the vast complexity of what the orange economy is about. Because even though creativity is a major aspect of the orange economy, there's actually more to know about what the orange economy is in its totality. So let's begin with a more comprehensible outlook, but not an exhaustive outlook about what the orange economy is. And that way it could give us a better understanding as to what's really required to develop an orange economy in the Bahamas. I also think it would give us a better understanding as to why it is that the orange economy includes not just creative sectors, but why it also includes non-creative sectors as well, like the sports sector, for instance, because the sports sector may not seem to be inherently a creative industry or a creative sector, and yet the sports sector is still a sector that's related to the orange economy. So a better understanding to have about the orange economy is to know that the underlying value in the orange economy is actually in human expression. And I've actually noticed that all the sectors that relate to the orange economy are like vehicles for human expression. Because with human expression, the unique identity and imagination of a person can be expressed and translated through art, through design, through architecture, through media, through performing arts, through beauty, through fashion, through gaming, through sports, and through entertainment, and so much more. And all of these that I mentioned are actually commercial sectors that are all a part of the orange economy. And so the orange economy can seem really broad, but the basis of it is where the value is in human expression. And this is why culture and heritage and cultural arts are also, part of the orange economy as well. Because again, with human expression, the unique identity and imagination of a people as a collective can be expressed through culture and heritage and cultural arts. And so all commercial sectors of the orange economy are vehicles for human expression. And even creativity itself is one of those vehicles for human expression, or it's one of the vehicles for self-expression. And with creativity in particular, I actually want to be clear when I say that I think that sometimes we might confuse creativity with style, but creativity is actually a form of intelligence and ingenuity, whereas style is more like a fingerprint or an attribute that's unique to each of us. And it's also something that we can develop over time. So how this plays out in the orange economy is that, some people are more creatively inclined than others. But despite there being some people who are more creatively inclined, it can actually be said that each and every one of us has their own unique skills and their own unique styles and attributes. So as it relates to the orange economy, this is actually where the knowledge economy comes into play, because even though only some people are more creatively inclined to produce new and original creative works, with the knowledge economy, those of us who are currently not as creatively inclined can actually be taught creative skills and be taught to learn how to imitate or duplicate creative works. But here's the thing also, because remember that no matter what, everyone has their own style. So even as people are able to learn how to imitate creative works, people can also add their own style and their own twist, which is the added value of human expression in the orange economy. And I've actually been intentional to say that the value is in human expression rather than in human performance, because, performance itself is just another vehicle for human expression. So creativity and style and performance, all of these are vehicles for human expression. And so I want us to understand these distinctions because it could really give us a much better perspective as to what the orange economy entails so that we could have a better outlook on how to develop an orange economy in the Bahamas. And I also want us to notice that the orange economy extends beyond creativity because, if we were to only think about the orange economy as just being a creative economy, then we could easily overlook what the core value is in the orange economy. And that could also cause us to overlook the full spectrum of opportunities that the orange economy is meant to allow for. Because, for instance, teaching is also something that's part of the orange economy. And a lot of people might overlook that because it's easy to think that the skill of teaching has more to do with the knowledge economy. But it also has to do with the orange economy as well, because teaching is actually an art, and it's an art where you're trying to get people to really understand and absorb the information that you're delivering. And so to be clear, the knowledge economy is purely about transferring knowledge and information, but the orange economy is in how that knowledge is being expressed and applied. And so with teaching, the actual style of teaching and the way it's applied is where the added value is. And again, that's the part that has more to do with the orange economy. And I talked about how everyone has their own unique style that they can add. And so this is what actually makes the orange economy distinct from the knowledge economy. And this is what makes the orange economy distinct from even the conceptual economy as well. And those two economies that I mentioned, the knowledge and conceptual, these are the economic models that I'll be covering in the next 2 episodes. But for now, all you have to know is that the knowledge economy has to do with skill sets and transferring knowledge, and the conceptual economy is where the imagination and creativity and ingenuity is birthed in the mind. And so what makes the orange economy distinct from both of these economies is that the orange economy is actually the means for which all of that creativity and knowledge and skill sets and imagination can be expressed, and the actual value is in how it's being expressed and applied. And so this is where we see that the orange economy extends beyond creativity because, like I said before, I think we might sometimes confuse creativity with style. And I'll give you an example because, just imagine that when the sport of basketball was, first officially introduced, right, it was something completely new. And with gymnastics or with any other sport, when any sport was first introduced, it was something of a completely new creative design, or it was a novel design of gaming or a novel means of entertainment. But as people learn to acquire the necessary knowledge and skills to play the game of basketball or to do gymnastics or whatever sport, then after learning these skills, people were then able to add their own unique styles and techniques. So, for instance, Michael Jordan is known for his high performance and capability in basketball. And that's the more knowledgeable skill set part of it. But he's also known for his unique style. And with Simone Biles, the gymnast, well, she's well known for her high performance in gymnastics. But she's also able to add her own twist, her own style. And now there are literally techniques that are named after Simone Biles. So it goes to show how the added value in the orange economy extends beyond creativity and even performance, because it's more about people adding their own unique style or application or expressing something in their own way, even if it's just giving commentary on a media platform. And this is what makes the orange economy what it is. And the basis of it all is in human expression, yet the added value is in the ability for people to add something unique. And this applies to all commercial sectors of the orange economy. But I'll just give one more example with music, because you can imagine that, when a new genre of music was first introduced, it was something completely new and creative. But you'd have people who'd learn to adopt that certain genre of music, and then they'd be able to actually create their own style or create their own version of a new song using that same genre of music. And furthermore, you would have people who would simply just learn a song that someone else did, and then they just do their own cover version of that same song. And today, there are people who literally benefit from just doing covers of other people's songs because, they're actually able to build an online following that consists of people who are actually interested to see someone else's version of a popular song, or even just see someone else's version of anything popular that someone else did. In fact, that's one of the reasons why things like karaoke and TikTok are so popular, because as with karaoke, TikTok is about people being able to imitate other people's content in their own way. And that creates new content that a lot of people are actually interested to engage with. So I just want to put emphasis here that the value is not limited to creativity when it comes to the orange economy. Creativity just happens to be one of the main ways that we happen to express ourselves. But to really know the orange economy is to know that it's based around commercializing the value of human expression itself. And so I wanted us to recognize just how extensive the orange economy is, and also give us a better understanding as to why the orange economy includes so many sectors, even the more non-creative sectors, because usually when there's discussion about what's needed to develop an orange economy in the Bahamas, the conversation is often limited to wanting to create a performing arts school, or wanting a training center for creatives, or a training center for, athletes, or to create some development that's catered for the entertainment of tourists. But the orange economy is so much bigger than that. And I think that many of us will find ourselves having to rethink our perception of what the orange economy is, especially as it continues to evolve. Because just imagine that as technology and machines continue to take over more and more of the jobs that can be automated, soon enough as humans, we'll find ourselves in the role of doing more of the creative work. And this will apply to all sectors across all industries. So the orange economy is really interesting, and it goes to show just how broad it is and just how much it could potentially evolve. Also, artificial intelligence is another sector that has to do with the orange economy. So as technology takes on more of the automated jobs, or the jobs that can be automated, I think humans will be able to focus more on our ability to be more creative. In fact, creativity and our ability to imagine is what makes us human anyway. So with all of that being expressed, it could actually be perceived that the orange economy is centered around humanity and expressing the human soul, which is embedded in everything that we do. And I know that's a bit deep, but it's also about finding ways to benefit from that economically. And so when we talk about developing an orange economy in the Bahamas, well, just like with any other economy that we want to develop, it requires that we work to create an ecosystem that would allow for that economy to be developed. And even more so with the orange economy, it requires that we create a culture that would inspire more creative value. And maybe now that we have a better understanding as to what the orange economy is and just how extensive it can be, then maybe we can have a better discussion as to what that culture and ecosystem could look like to develop an orange economy in the Bahamas. But I do want to point out just a few of the main things that we should consider when contemplating the kind of environment that we need to create for an orange economy in the Bahamas. Because for one, rather than limiting the conversation to just catering to creatives per se, or even athletes, or just considering people with quote unquote talent, what we want to do instead is to actually work to create an environment with everyone in mind, because everyone has potential value to add in the orange economy. Plus, it's not even a matter of having to be in a creative industry or a creative sector, because the orange economy is actually becoming more and more embedded across all sectors and all industries. So we need to plan for a more inclusive approach and a much more multifaceted approach in our development of an orange economy. But, the interesting thing is that a lot of what's needed to create the environment and the culture for an orange economy is already pre-existing in the Bahamas, as it is globally. And what I mean is that already, especially with technology, already a lot of people are actually able to have access to the information, to learn skill sets, including the more creative skill sets. And again, with people being able to add their own style and their own twists, they're actually able to add value and generate value in the orange economy. So overall, people today, and Bahamians included, have more access to the tools, the information, the services, and the audiences that they need. More importantly, people have access or can be directed to obtain access to learn how to leverage all of these things, especially with access to the internet. And that allows people even more to create whatever product, whatever business or experience that they want. Even art itself, as we know it, is no longer primarily featured in the creative economy, because with the use of technology, art now envelopes the digital, the knowledge, and the conceptual economies. And it now transcends our normal perception that limits art to the creative landscape. So now my point is that the digital economy has really impacted and expanded the orange economy in this way, where the global digital environment has already created this ecosystem that could readily facilitate all the activities of an orange economy. And so all we have to do is really tap into that expanse, and that would also allow us to experience more of the possibilities of an orange economy. Because currently, so far, in the Bahamas, the main efforts and ideas put forward to create an environment for an orange economy has actually been limited to where the focus has been on wanting to have structures in place. Like, for instance, wanting to have training facilities for athletes and spaces where Bahamians can come to cultivate their craft or their talent, and also spaces where Bahamians can demonstrate their talent through performances in front of an audience. But the limitation of that, especially when you consider just how extensive the orange economy is that with these kinds of structures and facilities, these are mainly geared towards cultivating and showcasing talent on a world-class level. And to a greater extent, often what these training facilities and structures usually aspire for is to actually be recognized for producing top talent at such a high level, where the hope is often to uncover the next breakout or breakthrough success story, or to uncover the next Michael Jordan or the next Beyonce, or whatever status is aspired for. So it's almost like wanting to build out these facilities and wanting to have world-class facilities and training centers only in hope of finding that next breakout star, which is like trying to win the lottery, where the odds can be 1 in millions. Also, when you consider the structures and facilities that we currently have in place now in the Bahamas, we often use these to allow for community events, and also to allow for the entertainment of tourists. And then, often these kinds of events are then touted as the big opportunities for which Bahamians with talent get to gain some benefit and get some exposure. But in reality, these opportunities are often short-lived. But if we were to really tap into the global digital environment, we could really extend the possibilities of an orange economy even more. Because, for instance, it's not just about trying to uncover the next breakthrough superstar or the next Beyonce or the next Michael Jordan or whatever level of success status that might be perceived. Because Just imagine that, for instance, with sports, I'll give an example, with basketball, because, there are a lot of basketball players who may not be ranked or rated among the high valued players or stars. And yet there's still the possibility for those same basketball players to actually post videos of themselves playing basketball right in their neighborhood. And so there's now the potential for those same basketball players to actually accumulate a huge following online just by posting videos, demonstrating their skill or showcasing their talent right in their neighborhood or at whatever community basketball games they might have, or even right at home in their yard. And so doing this can actually increase their visibility and chances of being discovered and recognized for their talent and skill online. But while doing so, they're also able to monetize the online following that they're able to build. So this is just one example of how tapping into the digital environment could extend the possibilities of an orange economy even further. And there's actually two things that I want us to notice. The first thing is that I think more and more we can recognize that the epitome of what used to be mainstream success is no longer the main benchmark for success in the orange economy. And I think social media influencers and content creators online are actually a good example for us to recognize that, because a lot of the success in the orange economy actually comes from being able to build an audience around your content or around your products or your service or your brand. And before, in the past, all of that was limited to the more traditional forms of media, where only a few people had access to communicate to the masses on a large scale. But now, with technology and with social media, almost everyone has access to a global audience where they can now create their own website or create their own social media presence, and therefore be able to build an audience and monetize that. And a lot of that actually has more to do with advertising and marketing and branding, which is absolutely essential when it comes to building an online presence. In fact, it's interesting that advertising and marketing and branding and research and development, all of these are actually major sectors of the orange economy. It's also interesting to know just how dominant advertising and marketing and branding is when it comes to the orange economy. Because, even when it came right down to determining the best way to symbolize the orange economy itself, there was a certain level of psychological branding and marketing analysis and research that was done before finally determining that the color orange, right? That might seem simple, but psychologically and from a branding perspective, the color orange was determined as to be the best way to signify and capture the essence of creativity and culture and capture the spirit of what this economy represents. But the second thing I want to point out is that even though a lot of us aspire to have these world-class venues like training and display centers as top priority in our development of an orange economy, a lot of those things has to do with first creating a real demand. And so first and foremost, the most important thing is to begin the creation of a culture that would actually stimulate that demand. Because when we focus on first creating a culture that facilitates all the activities of an orange economy, then it would also create a cultural demand that would help to stimulate more of the development of the training centers and the venues that we want. And one of the most important things to consider here is that the digital landscape is actually able to not only facilitate the ecosystem that's needed for an orange economy, but it's also able to facilitate our efforts in creating a cultural demand. Because to a greater extent, it actually allows Bahamians to build a global audience around their content or their brand or around their product, service, or business. And this applies across all sectors and industries. And so by Bahamians being able to attract a larger global audience extensively in this way, that could actually inspire the development of a hospitality-based ecosystem and the development of a multi-focused tourism environment in the Bahamas. And that could further stimulate a demand to have the kind of venues where we'd actually need to be able to accommodate larger scale events and activities of an orange economy. And again, this could apply diversely across a wide range of sectors. So over time, it could really allow for a real demand for a more diverse hospitality experience. And that would create a demand to have more diversity of world-class venues and accommodations that we want. So it goes to show that even though a lot of us think that having the facilities and venues is the first thing that we need to create the ideal environment for an orange economy, it's actually about simultaneously building a creative culture as well as the environment for creativity to thrive. And then that would create the demand to actually stimulate development for the establishments and structures that we want to have in place in the orange economy. And overall, it requires a much more multifaceted approach and a much more inclusive approach to create a culture that would actually help to stimulate the demand for many of the outcomes that we want to experience in an orange economy in the Bahamas. And so now, I just want to be clear about how that multifaceted approach and that inclusive approach can come about. Because yes, the digital environment allows for it, but it does require that each of us become more intentional in how we tap into that. And so first of all, I want us to know that collectively, we are the driving force in the orange economy. But each of us individually has a part to play to actually contribute to how the orange economy evolves overall. So to actually have a more multifaceted approach and a much more inclusive approach, it really starts with us just including ourselves. And what I mean is, now that we know that the orange economy is becoming more and more prevalent across all industries and sectors, we can also recognize that most of us are already operating in a different sector or industry. And so for the most part, chances are each of us may already be contributing directly or indirectly to the orange economy in some capacity. So my point then is for each of us to just be aware of that, and more so to now be intentional in our own efforts to contribute and generate value in the orange economy. In fact, as more and more jobs become automated, it will actually become more essential or more of a requirement for us to actually become more involved in the activities of an orange economy anyway. So starting now, more of us can actually include ourselves and be more intentional about that, no matter what sector or industry that we're in, so that we can all experience the most benefits as a collective overall. So now I want to be clear about exactly how we can be more intentional about that. And as I said before, the digital environment actually facilitates all the main activities of an orange economy, and each of us can tap into that. But more so, it's about each of us being intentional about how we tap into the digital environment. So more importantly, as we tap into the digital landscape, each of us will need to be intentional to focus on leveraging the main tools that are absolutely necessary for our growth in the orange economy. And those tools just happens to be advertising and marketing and branding and research and development. And I actually mentioned before just how dominant these are in the orange economy. And these are actually the main tools that we need to focus on in the digital environment, because it will actually aid in each of our ability to commercialize and monetize. And that's important because in the orange economy, it's not enough to just have talent, skills, or a means to express ourselves if we're not actually able to put ourselves in front of an audience to monetize or commercialize and add some economic benefit. And with research and development in particular, that's the most important component, if each of us want to actually see any longevity with any career in any sector or any industry, especially as it relates to the orange economy. And that's because, with research and development, we need to always know who our audiences are. We need to always be able to grow with our audiences. And we need to always be able to adapt with the changing needs of whatever industry or sector that we're in. Also, we want to consider the importance of intellectual property as well, because that's another necessary component in the orange economy. And that's because it's important for anyone who produces original works in the orange economy to actually be able to have rights to that intellectual property. So with copyrights, trademarks, and patents, a lot of us will want to own the rights and exercise the rights to the intellectual property that we're able to produce. And so we want to be able to benefit from that. So advertising, marketing, branding, and research and development and intellectual property rights. All of these are the major powerful tools in the orange economy. And once we know how to leverage these tools, it will actually help each of us to generate the most value in the orange economy. And also, by each of us including ourselves more intentionally this way, it actually helps to create the overall culture that we need for an orange economy in the Bahamas. And a culture like this can actually inspire more creative value because it would inspire more creativity among people. It also helps to create the cultural demand for the ideal environment and structures that we want to have in place in the orange economy. Plus, by us embracing more of the possibilities of an orange economy, we're not limiting ourselves. And another major outcome is the potential to attract a larger global audience to the Bahamas. So overall, we'd really be tapping into what the orange economy is about. And overall, we'd be more intentional in our approach to generate the most value in the orange economy across all sectors and industries. But now at this point, before I end this episode, I just want to point out how we can leverage another major asset that we have in the orange economy, because there's actually two main assets in the orange economy. The first asset is people, because the value is in human expression. And the other asset that we have as a collective is our culture. And I'm talking about our Bahamian culture and heritage. And this is something that's unique to us because it consists of the rich, unique, shared experiences that we have as a nation and the shared, unique identity that we have as a nation. And it's also about the unique way that we do things that are only unique to us as a nation. And all of that has incredible value. So our music, our food, our knowledge of bush medicine, for example, these are just some of the things that are unique to us. So I want to just quickly mention a few of the most important things that we want to consider to leverage our culture and heritage. And the first thing is, I think we can all recognize the need to preserve and protect our culture and heritage, especially from outside influences and forces of commercialization. But to actually start to actively preserve our culture and heritage, the biggest thing for us is that we need to move away from the oral traditions of teaching and passing on information about our cultural experiences. And instead, what we need to do is to actually start documenting the knowledge and experiences that surround our culture and heritage. And with technology, it makes it easier than ever to do that because, for instance, Bahamians, especially of the older generation, can actually contribute the wealth of knowledge and experiences that they had by just simply talking directly into a camera. And so it's important that we start documenting our cultural experiences because we don't want to lose the wealth of information that helps to sustain our Bahamian culture and heritage. And also, when I say that we need to document, keep in mind that video and audio are the preferred ways to document our cultural experiences. And that's because, well, for one, video and audio helps us retain information better, and it's more engagement friendly. It's easier to interact with. So going forward, we need to deliberately document our Bahamian cultural experiences this way, because overall, what we want to do is we want to create a more engaging resource of our cultural experiences, or create a reservoir that contains our shared cultural experiences that can actually serve as teaching tools. But nonetheless, documenting our Bahamian experiences in a more modern way creates a better means to start to preserve our culture and heritage. And that's the main thing that we want to do. Also, as we're able to recognize the value of our culture and heritage, we can also seek ways to monetize that globally in the orange economy. And one of the major ways to do that in the orange economy is through hospitality. And in the Bahamas, tourism is $1 billion industry. And globally, it's part of $1 trillion industry. But I want it to be known that the actual added value and the untapped value that we've yet to fully explore is in the larger hospitality industry. So you can imagine that even though tourism is $1 billion industry, there's so much more untapped revenue in hospitality that we've yet to tap into. Because to be clear, tourism is simply what people do. It's the activities, events, attractions, and services that we provide. But hospitality is the overall experience that people come for. And people come to the Bahamas to experience something that they can't get anywhere else in the world. So we actually need to turn the clock back, as the Bahamas was once known as a preferred hospitality destination. But today, we find that tourists are now having a narrowed Bahamian experience on board an all-inclusive floating hotel that we know as a cruise ship. And it's only when they get off that cruise ship that they're afforded a limited window in time to actually experience our Bahamian hospitality and culture. And they get to do it for a limited time and with whatever scanty cash that they have left over from the all-inclusive cruise ship experience. So the Bahamas has become a short-stop destination as part of an overall all-inclusive cruise experience. But the Bahamas should once again seek to become the full experience as part of the hospitality industry, which encompasses multiple forms of tourism-focused products. So overall, my point is that as we work towards preserving our culture and heritage, and as we seek to recognize the value of our culture and heritage, and as we seek to define and refine our strengths of our culture and heritage, we can also work towards creating a robust cultural experience through hospitality. And tourism is $1 billion industry, but through hospitality, we can generate even more revenue and tap into more of the possibilities. But that is it for this non-exhaustive episode about the orange economy. And now I'm actually interested to know your thoughts. So you can let me know in the comments what you think we should do to develop an orange economy in the Bahamas. And you can let me know what you thought about this episode. Also, don't forget to like and share. And also, if you're interested to get started in the orange economy for yourself, to actually build a business or build an audience around your brand or your product or your service, then I recommend our sponsor, Sand Dollar Business Solutions. In fact, if you're interested in getting started in any of the digital knowledge, conceptual, orange, blue, or green economic models, then Sand Dollar Business Solutions is the go-to premier expert to help you get started. And you can contact them for a free consultative session. You can WhatsApp them at 825-9300, and their email is innovate@sanddollarbusinesssolutions.com. Also, for those of you who haven't yet, you can go to EdenMaryGator.com and you can choose there how you'd like to follow my content to stay updated for new episodes. But until next time, I'm Eden Mary Gator, and as always, thanks for listening.